For decades, Pluto was watched from afar, not with excitement, but with routine patience. Astronomers were not hunting for anything new. They were simply trying to refine Pluto's orbit, tightening numbers, correcting calculations, and doing the slow, methodical work that rarely leads to surprises. But sometimes, discovery does not come from intention. It comes from mistakes that refuse to go away. In the summer of 1978, astronomer James Christie was examining photographic plates taken by the Kaj Strand telescope in Arizona. The images were not impressive. Many had already been stamped as poor quality. Pluto did not appear as a clean dot of light, but as a stretched, lopsided smudge with a strange bulge clinging to one side. To most researchers, this meant only one thing: the data was flawed. Atmospheric distortion, tracking errors, or imperfect alignment could easily cause such defects. Normally, these plates would have been discarded without a second thought. But Christie noticed something unsettling. The stars in the background were perfectly sharp. Only Pluto was distorted. If the telescope or the atmosphere were at fault, everything in the image should have been affected equally. That single inconsistency changed everything. Christie had spent years studying binary star systems, where two objects orbit each other so closely they blur into one. The shape on the photographic plate looked uncomfortably familiar. Instead of throwing the images away, Christie went backward in time. He dug through the observatory's archives, pulling Pluto plates that dated back to the mid-1960s. Again and again, he found the same note scribbled by earlier astronomers: Pluto image elongated. What once looked like repeated failure suddenly became a pattern. The bulge was not random. It moved, slowly, predictably, circling Pluto over time. When Christie and colleague Robert Harrington tracked this motion carefully, the numbers lined up in a way that could not be ignored. The mysterious object completed a full orbit every 6.4 days, exactly matching Pluto's own rotation period. This was no camera glitch. It was a massive companion, gravitationally locked to Pluto in a precise, repeating dance. A world hiding in plain sight, overlooked for years because it appeared as nothing more than a photographic flaw. But discovering Charon did not simply add a moon to Pluto's story. It opened a door scientists were not ready to walk through. Because once they understood Charon's orbit, they realized they could finally measure something they never truly knew before. And what that revealed would quietly undermine Pluto's status forever. At first, Charon seemed like a simple answer to a long-standing problem. By observing its orbit, astronomers could finally apply Kepler's laws and calculate the true mass of the Pluto system for the first time. What they found was deeply unsettling. Pluto was not the icy planet many had imagined. It was astonishingly lightweight. Its mass was only a fraction of Earth's moon, far smaller than expected for a world once ranked alongside the giants of the solar system. Even more surprising was Charon itself. Instead of being a tiny satellite, it turned out to be enormous compared to Pluto. Charon held roughly 12% of Pluto's mass. To put that in perspective, Earth's moon contains just over 1% of Earth's mass. Nothing like this existed anywhere else in the solar system. The imbalance was too extreme to ignore. This strange pairing led scientists to examine something most people never think about: the barycenter. This is the point where two orbiting objects balance each other's gravity. In nearly every planet-moon system, the barycenter sits deep inside the planet itself. The moon swings around while the planet barely moves, but Pluto and Charon refused to follow that rule. Their barycenter floated in empty space, hundreds of kilometers above Pluto's surface. Both bodies were orbiting something that wasn't physically inside either of them. That single fact changed how scientists viewed the system. Pluto was not hosting Charon. They were circling each other as near equals. This also explained another bizarre feature. Both worlds are tidally locked to one another. Charon always shows the same face to Pluto, and Pluto always shows the same face to Charon. If you stood on the hemisphere of Pluto facing Charon, the moon would hang motionless in the sky, never rising or setting. From the opposite side, it would not exist at all. These discoveries sparked an uncomfortable debate. Was this even a planet and a moon? Or was it something else entirely? Some astronomers argued Pluto and Charon should be classified as a double planet system, a category that did not officially exist at the time. When planetary definitions were reconsidered in the early 2000s, the Pluto-Charon system became a central exhibit in the argument. Charon did not directly demote Pluto, but without Charon, Pluto's weaknesses would never have been exposed so clearly. And once scientists accepted that Pluto and Charon were equals rather than ruler and subject, one question became impossible to avoid. How does a system this strange even form? The answer would lead to a collision that should not have worked at all. The moment scientists realized Pluto and Charon were near equals, the origin story stopped making sense. Systems like this do not form quietly. Something violent had to happen in the frozen outskirts of the early solar system. For years it was obvious, almost borrowed straight from Earth's own history. The idea was a scaled-down version of the giant impact theory. Long ago, a massive Kuiper belt object slammed into a young Pluto, blasting debris into orbit. Over time, that debris clumped together and became Charon. The math worked at first. The system's angular momentum made sense, and Charon's orbit was nearly circular, just as the model predicted. For a while, the case appeared closed. But as scientists refined their understanding of icy worlds, cracks began to form in the theory. Pluto and Charon are not molten rock bodies like early Earth. They are small, rigid objects composed largely of water ice mixed with rock. Under high-speed impact conditions, these materials behave very differently. Instead of splashing outward and reforming neatly, ice tends to shatter, fragment, and lose energy in ways the original models could not explain. Even worse, simulations showed that such a violent collision should have thoroughly mixed the interiors of both bodies. Yet observations told a different story. Pluto is significantly denser than Charon, with far more rock in its interior. Charon, by contrast, is more ice-rich. If Charon formed from debris blasted off Pluto, their compositions should look far more alike. They do not. By the late 2000s, it became clear that the classic impact story could not fully explain what astronomers were seeing. Pluto and Charon looked like survivors, not wreckage. They appeared to have preserved much of their original internal structure. This forced researchers to consider a radical possibility. What if the collision was not catastrophic at all? What if, instead of smashing each other to pieces, these two worlds barely survived by doing something far stranger? Instead of imagining a violent shattering, newer simulations explored a slower, more delicate encounter. The result was a theory that sounded almost impossible at first. A low-velocity, glancing collision, not destruction, but contact. In this scenario, Proto-Pluto and Proto-Charon collided gently enough that neither was torn apart. For a brief period, they became a single, misshapen object, spinning together like a cosmic snowman drifting through the Kuiper belt. Gravity held them in contact for hours, maybe longer, while tidal forces twisted and stretched both bodies from the inside. Eventually, the pair separated, but they did not escape each other. Instead, they remained bound in a tight gravitational embrace, settling into the binary system we observe today. This so-called kiss-and-capture model explained several mysteries at once. It accounted for the system's angular momentum without requiring complete destruction. It preserved the distinct compositions of both worlds, and it explained why neither body appeared to be built from mixed debris. More importantly, this gentle collision did something far more dramatic beneath the surface. The immense tidal stress generated enormous internal heat. Ice melted, rock shifted. Energy was trapped beneath thick, insulating crusts. Both Pluto and Charon were effectively jump-started from the inside, primed for geological activity far beyond what their small sizes should allow. For Charon, this heat would prove decisive. Locked beneath a frozen shell, the warmth melted deep layers of water ice, forming a hidden ocean. Pressure built. Time passed. And as the system slowly cooled, that ocean began to freeze. What happened next would tear Charon's surface apart on a planetary scale, because the most dramatic chapter of Charon's story was not written by impact. It was written from within. For years, Charon was just a blur beside Pluto. That illusion shattered in the summer of 2015 when New Horizons revealed a surface marked by catastrophe. This was not a quiet, frozen moon. It was a world that had nearly torn itself apart. Charon's face is carved by immense fractures, Towering cliffs and deep valleys stretch for thousands of kilometers, forming a belt of chasms around the equator. Some plunge more than 7 kilometers deep. These scars were not carved, they were ripped open. The cause lay beneath the ice. Heat from Charon's formation, combined with radioactive energy in its rocky core, melted water ice deep inside. For a time, Charon hid a liquid ocean beneath a frozen shell. But small worlds cool quickly. As the ocean began to freeze, everything changed. Water expands as it freezes. As Charon's ocean turned to ice, pressure built relentlessly from below. The crust stretched until it failed. The surface split apart on a global scale. This was not a single event. It was planetary expansion, a world cracking itself open from the inside. When the freezing ended, the violence stopped. With no atmosphere or active geology to erase the damage, the scars remained. What we see today is a frozen record of a moon losing its ocean, but this destruction was only half the story. A comparison of Charon's hemispheres reveals a sharp divide. The north is ancient and broken, heavily cratered and split by massive fractures. This is Charon's original crust, preserved in ruin. The south tells a different story. Vulcan Planitia is smooth, low-lying, and far younger. Instead of chaos, it shows signs of flow. Broad swells and frozen waves suggest movement, slow and steady, across the surface. This points to massive cryovolcanism. As the subsurface ocean froze, pressure forced icy liquid upward through fractures in the crust. Mixed with ammonia, the slush stayed liquid longer and erupted onto the surface. Charon did not erupt fire, it erupted ice. These flows flooded the southern hemisphere, burying older terrain and erasing craters. In places, giant blocks of older crust appear stranded like icebergs, surrounded by frozen plains. Vulcan Planitia may be one of the largest cryovolcanic regions ever discovered. This was the final release of Charon's internal heat. After this, the world went quiet, but one mystery remained. When clear images arrived, one feature stood out instantly. Charon's North Pole was stained dark red, not shadowed, not cratered, painted. The color comes from tholins, complex organic compounds formed when methane is altered by radiation. Tholins are common in the outer solar system, but Charon's polar concentration is extreme. The question was simple: where did the methane come from? The leading explanation points to Pluto. Pluto's thin atmosphere slowly leaks methane into space. Charon captures some of it. During long polar winters, temperatures plunge low enough for methane to freeze onto the surface. When sunlight returns, radiation transforms it into reddish tholins. In this view, Pluto is actively coloring its companion, even as its own atmosphere escapes into space. Another theory suggests the methane came from within Charon itself. During the cryovolcanic era, gases released from the interior could have formed a temporary atmosphere. Methane would migrate to the poles, freeze, and eventually darken under radiation. Both explanations remain possible. Either way, the red pole proves one thing: Pluto and Charon are still connected. This story began with a smudge nearly thrown away. From that mistake emerged a world that reshaped planetary science. Charon's orbit revealed Pluto's true mass, exposing it as the prototype of a new class of worlds. Its existence forced astronomers to rethink what defines a planet and helped push Pluto from its throne. Charon also showed that even the coldest worlds can be violent. Its surface records a lost ocean, massive ice volcanoes, and ongoing interaction with its partner world. In mythology, Charon was inseparable from Pluto. Science revealed the same truth. These are not planet and moon, they are partners, bound by a shared origin and locked in an eternal dance. Charon reminds us that the solar system is shaped by accidents. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries begin as flaws, waiting for someone patient enough to look again.